thank you for coming to this presentation on Thomasnetcom and our electronics manufacturing data. I'll start by, just filling in a couple of things. You heard about what I did on Wikipedia and the fact that, I have such a weird accent. I always feel like I owe you all to explain it a little bit. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and I actually grew up within a factory environment. My grandfather escaped from mainland China, and he actually built a toy factory that at its peak, they employed over 3,000 people in China, but we started our plastic injection molding factory in Hong Kong, Taiwan. So I've seen it all in the 80s. And then I moved to London to pursue my third degree. And there I realized, data and storytelling are two really important skills. So what's been amazing is I got to work with all these amazing international organizations and helping them unlock the data to tell stories and influence both business decisions, but also long-term visions. So enough about me. I want to just really succinctly tell you three things I'm going to tell you about. And I also wanted to really emphasize that I have my mouse here. I may move it around, but I'm going to keep the corner of my eye on the events chat. I would love the first link broken, Aaron. Yeah, see, I'm actually looking at that. I tested it. I'll reload the link, but I'll make sure you guys have the presentation after this talk. And the three things I want to talk about is, okay, first 3 minutes, just a little bit more about Thomas, no marketing spiel. I think it's very important for me to contextualize what do we do so that you know where our data come from. The second and the third part of the presentation would be the meaty part, where I want to talk about COVID-19 impacts on North American manufacturing and also electronic manufacturing by the number, where I will share year-over-year changes by Q4 last year, but also latest data from January 2021. I keep on wanting to say 2020, and no, you don't want that. You don't want to relieve all of that, right? So, okay, let's go. So Thomas, we have been around for over 123 years. We have over 500,000 suppliers categorized, listed on Thomasnet.com, and they're all Canadian and companies from the USA. And within all these companies, they are categorized into over 70,000 categories. I always say from adhesive to zinc alloy, A to Z. We have a team of engineers who actually look at the capabilities and certifications from suppliers and kind of tag them along with our taxonomy. So what it means is on a monthly basis, we do have over 1.4 million industrial suppliers. A lot of them are buyers coming to our platform on a daily basis. We have Fortune 5,000 companies, but actually close to 70% of our users are from small and medium companies across all sectors, from aerospace and defense, automotive, and we see a tremendous rise in education and infrastructure, probably because of COVID in the last few months. It all starts with Thomasnet.com, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time demoing, but I just want to show you we're a bit like Google in a way, right? You can just type in transmissions and you will see all local Canadian, US-based transmission suppliers, 236 of them. And as I mentioned, we have a team of data people and taxonomy specialists where they would codify all of these manufacturers by their location, the radius they serve, as well as firmographic data of these companies, say annual revenue, when were they founded, company employee counts, but also we have over 190 filters where you can filter suppliers by whether or not they have ISO certification, FDA clean room, and also minority ownership statuses like veteran-owned, women-owned, minority-owned business. So why am I telling you this? I think fundamentally in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you, because we have this crazy reach and unique North American data, I actually can show you two key things, as I mentioned, COVID-19 impact on manufacturing and also specific trends when it comes to electronic manufacturing. So let's dive in. Well, funny enough, you guys heard Ryan's name 20 times now because he's going to host something really fun that I will actually sacrifice my 8th anniversary dinner to join, I think. Good thing my husband is a workaholic as well. I think he may not even notice that I'm not showing up. The point being is he actually reached out to us when we were trying to figure out the biggest information gap in the US at the beginning and even now for the crisis. We don't really have a really clear PPE and ventilator parts and beyond clearinghouse. So Thomas actually repurposed our capability, and we started connecting thousands of suppliers with buyers. So to our surprise, and this is just to show you how much the market needed this, we have over close to 2 million users who use our system. We have amazing companies and organizations sourcing N95 through Thomas, as well as creating new products with moms and pops manufacturers. There are many manufacturers who thought they're going to go out of business, but they were able to find bigger buyers and pivoted their supply chain and retool their capabilities, and they survived. Tremendous story. Really, everyone stepped up and helped each other out. I always say, I said, it is terrifying presenting to all of you because you're probably the smartest cohort I've ever presented to, but it's also really rewarding because you guys make things to save lives, okay? So what are the additional really interesting trends I'm seeing from COVID-19 impact? To start, you may notice that, our Wi-Fi might be not that reliable these days. It may take you an extra week for you to get your MacBook Pro. It's because even the moms and pops manufacturers who were slower to adapt digital marketing and all the other, SaaS services are realizing, hey, this is the time. It is actually a survival question. So we see a tremendous increase in the importance of website, email, and digital marketing tools. We did not expect our factory tour service to increase so much, but in 2020 we noticed that most of the manufacturers are struggling to participate in trade shows, and we saw that with our production facilities, people really want to be able to tell stories about the capability and display the capabilities visually. So what it really shows me is, okay, now people understand that perhaps international supply chain has its risk, and 2 in 3 suppliers are saying, okay, they're a lot more interested in reshoring to America. But I remember when I was preparing this presentation with Anna, and I was saying, hey, but Cathy, it doesn't seem like everyone is ready from the data, from instrumentals, and I like to actually share some really weird aspects of reshoring, right? So if you think about reshoring, not all businesses are made the same, and not all production stages are as easy as one another for you to move physically. So what I mean by that, let's look at from June's data, what are the most sourced materials that people think they're going to look for locally. So the first product is actually metals. And for this presentation, I actually went and looked at steel sourcing activities on Thomasnet.com. So no surprise there. Since March 2020, you can see that steel sourcing activities went up by over 60%. You can argue, hey, Kath, apart from COVID-19, there was the trade war. There's also Biden's Buy American Act. And as you know, instead of 90% American-made product for steel manufacturing for public procurement, it's now gone up to 95%. So I'm going to show you something that's more relevant to your demographic. So when it comes to investment interest in automation processes, what I saw in June is fascinating. So this really aligns with Anna's presentation, where more companies are interested in investing in production performance, product testing, and quality assurance, and process control. You can see the green color, it means they're very likely going to do that, and the blue color are likely. So, okay, now I showed you the bigger industrial interest in automation and reshoring. What about electronic manufacturing? So let me show you some sector sourcing trends. But before I delve really deep into your specific sector, I want to share 3 extraneous variables that I think are playing a really key role in how we talk about reshoring. And I want to contextualize that before we jump into sector data. Number 1, so this is the data that was last updated in December last year. What is really interesting is, I don't know how many of you, when you design your engineering product, you have to worry about shipping cost fluctuation. But when it comes to Asia, US, to Asia to US shipping per container cost. When I talked to the sector, people said it went from 1,600, 1,500 to over 5,000. And last week, I even heard that from, Shanghai, China to America, one container is costing people $16,000, and they're still struggling to get on that particular shipment. So I think this may eventually calm down, but another really interesting aspect is to add to that, you have the yuan to dollars fluctuation in the last 2 years because of the pandemic and a lot of geopolitical instability. That's been fluctuating as well. And the third thing is, I think you all know America doesn't operate in a vacuum. Other countries are actually trying to catch up, especially when you think about the geopolitical instability of Taiwan and that they make 70% of world's semiconductor. So what I notice is, I goof around a lot when people call me. It's like, hey, semiconductors look like we're running out of semiconductors in the world. So I did the most simplest thing. I kind of looked at semiconductors. So who are sourcing semiconductors and where are they sourcing? And to my surprise, I actually, okay, how good is your geography? I got an A, but turned out it's not very, very good because I never heard of the place called Tamil Nadu, and it's a region in India. You see the bright blue at the top. And I thought, okay, they have thousands of page views, year over traffic, it's gone up by a significant margin. At first, I thought it's data abnormality, but then I actually did more research around that. And turns out that government is actually investing significantly and pushing for 100 billion target output by 2025. And of course, they come to Thomas, I guess, to source parts and look for information. So those are the three big variables that we don't have control over. But I'm going to show you really kind of more positive aspect of what's going on from what we could see in North America. So I'll share a little bit of my methodology and how I get the data. For Q4 to January this year, we have over close to 4,000 companies that are self-declared electronic buyers and telecommunication buyers. We have these companies and beyond. What I've done is I anonymize the data to show you what are these buyers looking for. So for Q4 2020, the top categories that they're looking for electronic and telecommunication buyers are very, to be expected. Electronics, engineering services, stamping services, nothing surprising here. Now, what is really weird though is when you actually triangulate the data and focus on change, what I'm presenting to you is the same set of data, and I'm going to slow down a little bit because this is when the data gets interesting. So for the math nerds here, stat nerds, I'm going to talk about the dual axis. I'm very proud of that. So on the left axis, basically these are absolute sourcing activities across each headings that we call categories of Thomas. And on the right, it is the axis that shows year-over-year growth percentage in sourcing activities. So as I told you, the base is around, a bit less than 4,000 companies. So you get a sense of the scale of the growth. Now, what I thought is interesting is electronic sourcing has gone up by 105%, really good. Engineering services, close to 200%. But when you start looking at additional aspect of it, it started to follow the story I was telling at the beginning. When everyone's working from home, you want remote factory monitoring. The use of video and streaming and Wi-Fi has become astronomical. So you see that, there's additional demands when it comes to antennae, testers, and also, servers. Not surprising. So what is interesting also is you can see that packaging machinery is one of the top 20 categories. It also gone up by 48%. So I was thinking, okay, this is starting to tell a story where, okay, general electronic related activities are going up and cutting and stamping services are going up. What about if I actually look at the data and look at only January 2021 compared to the year before? That's probably going to show me even more fast-moving trends that I wasn't seeing with the 4 months, a whole quarter, 3 months, a whole quarter of data combined together. So this is January comparing, 2021 to 2020. Now, this is interesting. So assembly services, it was like, a lot further down with the previous graphs. And I gave you the link to follow along. I think, hop on 8 might enter sign. So if you copy the link, you will find it slightly differently. I think someone else, actually, Sam, thank you. Sam fixed the link. So if you click the Sam link, you can look at the data and we can follow along. So what I'm seeing is with assembly service, it is actually the number 2 most important category that electronic and telecommunication companies are looking for. And in addition, this is interesting. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, I showed you that more companies are interested in investing in automation, right? So automation systems sourcing actually went up, and that's in electronic sector. Research, design, and development also went up. But also what's interesting is the indirect sourcing activity. What do we mean by that? Indirect sourcing activities are products and services that enable you to run the factory and not necessarily the material that goes into the making of the product. Think about insurance or laptops for designers, right? So fabric and cloths, flooring, and I would even argue televisions and the devices that runs, remote monitoring, they're all trending up. But more interestingly, is packaging machinery had gone up by close to 2,000%. So if I had to put a bet, and I always joke I should start like an investment club because of all the amazing data I see on Thomas, what I'm guessing is there more companies that are trying to reallocate high modular part of the supply chain, which I think is defined as things that are more sophisticated and established and repeatable. That is easier for you to lift and bring back, as opposed to the more sensitive, still in R&D research phrases. It's harder for you to bring that whole system back. So I would be really curious about what you guys think of that. And as I said, I am a bit like the spotlight in the dark. I can shine the light into really interesting data trends, but you guys are the makers and the hunters, and I'll be really curious about on the ground if you're seeing data and trends that comply with our macro analysis. And I'll end by saying one more thing that I noticed in the electronic and also just engineering sector is the rise of open source innovation. So I've been actually advising an organization called Helpful Engineering. They have 18,000 engineers, and they work across the clock around the world in creating projects that can help alleviate COVID-19. And I was listening to the Oculus presentation, and I was thinking, actually, it's interesting that these people are sending their CAD files to friends that have 3D printers in doing rapid prototyping and connecting with people who have capability of understanding UV filtering technology, and then found university and professional laboratory to test the filtration and virus disinfecting effect. And it worked. Like, it's been 99% success in terms of the lab report. So I think all in all, let me just recap on everything that I talked about, because I know there's been 30 slides in 30 minutes. I think the first key trend I'm seeing, reshoring. Intent and consequences do not conform to a linear path. What do I mean by that is when I talk to manufacturers through survey or from the data I'm seeing, I see that there are part of the supply chain that are demonstrating more propensity in reshoring or increase in demand than the more complicated supply chain. The second aspect of it, for the electronic industry, I think there are signs of growth in research and development and assembly, and I'll be really interested in hearing from you whether or not you're feeling that on the ground as well. And finally, I think this is something that Ryan Kelly and I talk a lot offline when it comes to industrial commons. I wonder if geopolitical and pandemic-induced instability may actually provide a last-mile incentive, not for everyone, not for every company, nor every organization, but for enough to invest in domestic production. So what we're going to do at Thomas is we will be launching another survey about reshoring with more data to share with you all. And if you would like to stay connected, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you have my email. And also you can sign up to our industry panel. I'm sorry about the formatting with the message I pasted on the chat. But when you're on the panel, I actually create these sort of report on a quarterly basis, but also we tend to organize, maybe Instrumental and us can partner together, water cooler conversation where in a safe and confidential environment, I can go deeper into any data points that people might be interested in, and we can just dissect and have a chat about all of that.